Financial freedom, something many people talk and dream about, but only a few accomplish the goal. Is it luck? Is it mindset? Or maybe habits? The book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, written by Robert Kiyosaki, is an all-time bestseller, and here is a quick, under 10-minute summary. Money is important for everyone, and most of the people in this world are struggling with financial difficulties. The book Rich Dad, Poor Dad explains that people don't know the secret of becoming rich. Robert Kiyosaki is a Japanese-American businessman, an investor, motivational speaker, and an educator born in Hawaii. His net worth is an estimate at $80 million. And guess what? He does not come from a wealthy family and is complete self-made. In his book, he explains his financial handlings detailed. It became a bestseller and one of the best books ever written about personal finance. He starts by explaining that he had two men as examples. The first one is his own father, whom he refers to as the poor dad. The other one is his friend's father, whom he calls the rich dad. Both men teach him important life lessons and help him shape his future life. In the beginning of the book, the author explains about his childhood experience. He was studying at school where rich children studied. Soon these kids separated themselves from him since they considered him poor. So one day, little Robert asked his father how he could become rich. His father, who was a well-educated man with a PhD, but he wasn't rich. Though the poor dad had a high-paying job, he was never able to manage finances. At the end, he died leaving a lot of bills for his family to pay. So the poor dad advised him and his friend Mike to go to Mike's father and ask him how to be rich. The books refer to Mike's father as the rich dad since he had been able to become one of the wealthiest men in Hawaii. Robert and Mike were mentored and learned all the importance of personal financing at a young age. The book then goes on explaining these valuable lessons. The main lesson was to identify the difference between assets and liabilities. An asset is something that puts money into your pocket, while a liability is something that takes money out of your pockets. Examples for assets are businesses that don't require your presence, mutual funds, bonds, real estate. Liabilities are credit cards, mortgages, loans, and other houses. The poor people mistake liabilities as assets. The author explains that rich people acquire assets while the poor and the middle class buy liabilities. A poor man or a middle-class man has a job from which he earns money, but his income is spent by his expenses. Also, he doesn't have any assets, but he has many liabilities, which takes the money out of his pocket so that he becomes a poor person. But a rich man has his assets, which bring him more income. And the reason that leads poor dad into debt was because his income was equal to his expenses and his liabilities were larger than his assets. But the rich dad grew his assets and built his empire as a wealthy man. The rich dad was able to make his own income larger than his expenses, and his assets were larger than his liabilities. For this, the rich dad invested his money. This is why the rich people get richer and the poor people get poorer. In this book, we can learn from both dads. Both of them were hardworking men, but it was their attitudes that changed their fates. They both believed in getting an education. The poor dad advised his son to study hard at school and get good grades so that he can secure a high-paying job at a good company. The rich dad also advised him to study, but it was to become an entrepreneur who can create jobs for other people. While one dad was teaching him the qualifications that he needed to write in his CV, the other dad was teaching him the financial plans that can be used to build his own financial empire. The poor dad told him that the reason for being poor is because he had children. But the rich dad's opposing attitude was that it was a must to be rich because of his children. The poor dad advised him to not take risks, and the rich dad's advice was to learn to manage how to take risks. The poor dad said, "I can't afford that." The rich dad said, "How can I afford that?" While the poor dad believed in getting a well-paid job, the rich dad taught him that most people are run by the emotions, fear, and greed. The reason people go to their job every day, even though it is a boring job, is because of the fear. People fear that if they don't work and lose their job, they'll have no money. At the end, they won't be able to pay the bills. Because of this fear, they get up every day, go to job, get money, and spend it to pay bills. So that at the end of the month, they'll be disappointed about how little money is left from what they've earned by working hard. This is actually a trap that most people fall into and can't get out of because of their fear of losing money. The other emotion which drives people is greed, also called as desire. The desire to have more money so that they can have more joy is also a reason that keeps people in the trap of working for money. But as the author says, how his rich dad had mentored him, the rich won't work for money. They make money work for them, while the poor work for money. The poor let their greed, fear overrun them and keep working for money. Most people are afraid of money because they don't understand the power of money. They don't understand how to use money. At schools, the education we get is focused on getting a high-paid job. It teaches us how to become professionals, but doesn't teach us financial management, so that most people are financially illiterate and ignorant. This ignorance about money is which makes people poor, and also why talented people are unable to make money from their talents. What the school doesn't teach us is that academic success doesn't guarantee us financial success. For this, we need to learn financial management. The rich dad told him to not think with his emotions, but to use his emotions to think. We can't succeed by thinking, I need a pay rise, or waiting for the government to provide a fund for us. We have to think where we have been mistaken. For poor people, their income is their job, but for rich people, their assets are their income. Your wealth is how long you can survive if you stopped working today. We highly recommend to read this book, preferably more than once. We hope this summary provides you with the basic tools to create your own personal path to financial freedom. Start making plans, set targets, and get going. If you want to see more videos, make sure to subscribe, and if you haven't liked this video already, please support the YouTube algorithm by doing so.